Welcome to ForceProSports Laserforce Podcast with your host, Mr. Mischief.
Welcome to ForceProSports, everybody. Laser tag is the world's next up-and-coming sport. It's tactical, athletic, modern, and innovative. Join us today as we talk all things Laserforce tournaments and community. My codename is Mr. Mischief. I am an incredibly amateur laser tag sports analyst who aims to make laser tag presentable and exciting for all. Today I'm joined by Odin's Fist from Sacramento, California. Welcome.
Hello. How's it going?
I miss doing podcasts with you.
It's fun. It's good fun.
You're fun. And gorgeous.
Do you prefer I refer to you as Luke or Mr. Mischief throughout this?
Whatever. Mr. Luke, if you want.
Okay. Luke Chiff.
Yep.
All right. Yeah, so this time I'm flipping the script on Luke, and we're going to be interviewing him a little about Nats 2023, Loveland's favorite talking point.
Yeah, my favorite.
A lot of the reason why I came to Luke with this idea to interview him is because I really want to talk about the concept of home field advantage, because I feel like it's brought up all the time. Like everyone's always talking about home field advantage and oh, well, like, you know, yeah, they're good in their home field, but are they good in an away field and all these points. But I feel like nobody's really actually sat down and defined what home field advantage is and what it looks like and what you're supposed to do with it. And so that's kind of the point of this video that I'm putting together and the interview that I'm about to have with Luke, where we're going to try and kind of define that a little more and see what it looks like to actually use home field advantage in order to defend your honor at your home site.
That's what it's all about. Like, yeah, there's win-loss ratio, but I think honor is the most important statistic we have in Laserforce.
I mean, there's no prize at the end of the day other than showing off, so...
Honor!
Yeah. I mean, I guess, you know, the trophies, but that's just another way of showing off, so...
Yeah,
you know, even if you don't get first, you at least want to make sure that you're putting on a good showing as a home site, so... Yeah. Do you have any random stuff you want to say or talk about before I kick this off?
Yeah, I mean, I'll get my little bit in before you carry on the interview. I thought this was a great topic because what's been coming up a lot in talks of Nats 2025 was just how significant the home field advantage was for the Brisbane players. It's something I'll talk a little about in my What I Got Wrong show that is coming up at some point soon. But like, Kodama left a little snippet in our power rankings show just saying this is the biggest advantage, home field advantage in Laserforce history or in the whole scene. I didn't quite understand that when he said that, what he meant was Brisbane benefits from home field advantage more than just about any other site. I have some stats that might debate that, but yeah, what's basically being said is if you play at your home site, you are going to have an advantage compared to if you play at an away site. And I want to share, I've actually done some stats research on this. And these stats are going to not include Nats 2025. I'm sorry, everyone. I'm sorry. I didn't want to go redo it. I didn't have time. I had this already prepared with 2014 to 2024. So this is our sample size, by the way. I took the top 50 most experienced players. So these are players who have played in the most tournaments out of everyone. Not the top MVPs, not the whatever. But I measured home field MVP differential versus away MVP differential. And this is the spread we got. So we have players who they gain like 6 or 7 MVP points at their home site, all the way down to players who hardly have any difference. And then a few outliers who actually do better at away sites. I'm going to shout out Phantom or Vanessa as our -4. She loses 4 MVP on average when she plays at Loveland compared to other sites. Any thoughts on this?
Yeah, I think, you know, it's pretty solid support for, you know, the fact that having these advantages at a home field and being able to, use your knowledge really benefits the way that you're able to play the game.
Absolutely. I'll share two more slides with you. Or maybe just this one. So this is the average per site. This is home tournaments with site-locked events versus away tournaments with site-locked events. Syracuse players actually do the best. They gain the most from being at home, statistically, compared to every other site. Detroit does the same-ish. The players that travel out of Detroit, anyway, do about the same-ish, regardless of where they are.
That's very interesting, and I think like a big part of what even makes home field advantage so significant is the fact that, every arena is different. And so I think a part of it too just goes to show that, like, you have a fairly significant spread here. And so you can see how maybe having different types of arenas might lend itself more to having more home site advantage versus maybe your arena is easier for other players to figure out. And so maybe you don't have as much advantage there, or maybe your arena lets you develop certain skills that might be applicable to more away arenas than others.
Yeah, that absolutely is something to debate and discuss. I'm actually going to just end that there. I'll keep my my stats close to the vest right now, feed them slowly to the public. That's all I got. Point is, like, there are stats that verify home field advantage is a thing.
Yeah, it's real. It's real, and we're going to talk about it. So, that kind of brings me to the first topic that I want to discuss with you, which is what is home field advantage? And so I'm just going to ask you outright, what does home field advantage mean to you?
You are a more powerful version of yourself when you play at home than when you're at an away tournament. And there's a lot of factors involved in that. When you look at most sports, all courts look the same in basketball. All football fields look the same, etc. But there is such a thing as home field advantage. Teams do tend to play better at home, and a big reason for that is, one, they don't have to acclimate to any new environments. Sometimes you're gaining tons of elevation, or you have to do a long play ride. The audience members are most likely to be more of your fans. You'll get lots of positive support rather than people trying to sabotage you and say mean things to you from the stands. There's a lot of minor factors in home field advantage in sports, but Laserforce takes it to a whole nother level because the arena does change. The walls, the everything literally changes at different sites. So that's part of what makes the home field advantage so significant, is one team might get to practice at a home field over and over and over all year long and learn all the ins and outs. Build the muscle memory, I think, is a huge part of it. You don't have to think as much when you're in your home field because your body already knows how to make that turn or how to come around that wall. Whereas in away arenas, you're learning that stuff while you're also trying to think about the game in a wider context.
Yeah, I think that's a great overview. And personally, I kind of break it into certain categories, like the physical advantages, the mental advantages, the atmospheric advantages. Shout out Loveland Nats, you mountain men having to adapt to a high altitude. And Sacramento, we get very warm here, so people have to probably have to adjust to that when they're coming over here. Not that happens anymore, but there's definitely environmental factors. I think one of the really big things, like you said, is that muscle memory. That's something that I have been kind of thinking about a lot, especially like my general approach to improving at the game has always been minimizing the things that I have to think about so that I have more things that I can think about. And so just getting a lot of things down to second nature. And when you have to think about the way that you're maneuvering through the field, you have to think about where the best route is. That's just excess information that's just taxing your brain, which is rough. I think specifically one of the big things is base runs. I think a lot of times, you play a lot of members nights and you just kind of figure out like the optimal way to get your bases. What's the quickest route there, the safest, I have the least risk of getting shot from random angles. And a lot of that really is kind of too much to think about in an away tournament when you have all these other changes that have to be made. You have to adapt. And so being able to have that knowledge innately going into the tournament, I think is actually a huge advantage.
Yeah, 100%.
So, on to my next question. In what ways have you struggled playing against home field advantage in the past?
Oh my goodness. I think a lot of it comes down to honestly the micro and the macro. Both are big problems, major problems. Part of it's been like not having the weapons to even compete in the first place. I think is part of what I mean by the micro. I mean, like if we go to Syracuse in particular, this is one that's relevant right now coming to mind. The Syracuse players, even if we have the right idea for how to counter their macro, their overall strategy, we see them overcommitting resources in this area, so we want to punish them by putting our resources in this area. A lot of times they will win trades. It's not unfairly, it's improbably, because they know the arena so much better than we do. A home field advantage team is likely to get away with things like one scout was able to keep both 3 hits out for a prolonged period of time because they were just running circles around them or using angles the other 3 hits weren't thinking about. It might be like if you ever play Risk, it might be like your opponent gets a +2 on all of their dice rolls. Like, I should be able to beat you, but you're just better at fighting. And so we can't do what we'd normally do against you. So that's the micro. Like, micro actually is them physically stopping you in ways that you don't understand how to counter unless you play there a lot longer.
Yeah.
And then the macro side of it, like, if you do get a win, those home side players are far more familiar with far more losing situations than you are. And I think especially the big thing is they probably know what to do on an automatic level. Like, oh, we've all been here. We all 6 know how to counter this, so we're all going to go do that thing. Whereas an away site might experience it for the very first time ever in the middle of a game where you can gain or lose points, and they have to go out and they have to like talk about that. Hey, what happened? How do we make sure that doesn't happen again? And for every one of those situations, like there's like 100,000 that you have to go through before you find all of them.
Yeah, absolutely. I think another problem that I've seen come up when traveling, and this I think also falls into the home field advantage, is actually team building. You have a lot more access to players when you're playing at your home site, because you might be playing members nights and saying, oh, like, we're playing really well together, we have these really strong players, and then all of a sudden this one's having another baby and this one's getting married, and they're not going to Nats next year, so what are we going to do?
It's true. Yeah. I don't know how it is for other sites, but we've got a good, I don't know if I'd call it, let's just say half, to be general, of all our players just don't travel. They just either can't or won't. And that's okay, because this is just a game at the end of the day. But it sure is annoying when you are getting beat up by a home site player at your members nights every week, and you're like, if you just travel.
Yeah. Are there any times that like you specifically can think of where you were at an away tournament and you're like, if we just had this one stinking player, if he just showed up?
Oh, so many times. I can almost count them all off. Like in 2017 East Coast, if we could have had Slaughter Melon there, our East Coast team would have been like full strength. In Nats 2019 in Detroit, Simply Okay couldn't make it after showing out in Detroit 2 years prior. We couldn't have, like, he had a spot that was really hard to fill. We could have really used Sergeant Tucker in 2021 Syracuse. Resupply was struggling. I don't know. Yeah, it's like it definitely shows the difference when you're just missing one or two key pieces. and they can't, for whatever reason, take an entire week out of their life to go play laser tag.
Yeah. What nerds. Right?
I know, right?
Bunch of losers.
Mm-hmm.
And then kind of my final question for you on establishing what we're looking at with home field advantage is home field weaknesses. In what ways do you think, or have you experienced some actual potential problems or weaknesses come out of playing in your home site?
Two come to mind. One of them would be expecting other players from outside of your site to play like players within your site. When people come in from out of your site, they bring weird ideas. And in your arrogance, you might think, oh, we've tried that before, but it doesn't work or whatever. But I will complain about the Loveland site in this way. And I don't think Loveland is different from any other site. Whenever we're playing our members night games, I think I'm the most frequent player who tries this. I try to ask players if we can do something besides the basic meta. Hey, can we start downstairs and then try to do a bait and switch on them? Can we flip the heavy in commander? Can we do something kind of crazy? And people just don't want to do it. They like staying with the basics. And that's okay. I do think it gets boring. And I also don't think it really prepares you for playing competitive when people are going to throw different openings at you and there's a bit of a rock, paper, scissors dynamic. And yeah, you get really used to playing against your own site play style, your own site interpretation of the arena. And then people come in and they do weird stuff. And sometimes it works and you have no idea what to do against it because you've never seen it. So it's like a reverse. That's one of the very few advantages of being an away player, is sometimes you can do something the home site is very uncomfortable with. And the second thing I would say is just entitlement, feeling like you should be good enough to beat people in your home arena. There's definitely a sense of pride and defending your turf, where it's like if people beat you in your home site, it feels pretty humiliating. So if you can't overcome that and treat people like they have the ability to beat you, home site teams, they can fall apart. Even just in one key loss, can be pretty tilting.
Yeah. I think another thing that I consider a potential home field weakness is kind of the opposite of the team building aspect, which is commitment levels. I think a lot of times when you're not taking the time out to travel, it's very easy for players to undercommit to Nats. Oh, I can work my night shift job and attend Nats at the same time, and that way I don't have to stop working, which can lead to some potential problems, lack of sleep at a minimum, and sometimes even dropping from the tournament.
That's a good point. We've seen that. Like, oh, can't make it. But if you're stuck in a different state, then of course you're playing.
Yeah, the whole way through. Broken wrist or whatever you got going on. Yeah, great stuff.
Is that why Beans keeps playing through injuries? He's like, well, I'm already here. Like, I'm pretty bored sitting in my chair.
That's why he just buys the fights. He just and then he knows he's gonna play no matter what's going on.
Oh, I can't play.
Yeah, good stuff. Yeah, so I think we did a pretty good job of kind of going over just a general what home field advantage is. So this next kind of topic I want to get to is preparation, which is specifically why I'm trying to interview you here. And so to start off with, did the topic of home field advantage ever come up in your meetings, practices, what have you, in preparation for 2023?
Do you mean
2024? 2023 was also a good year, but not Loveland. Yeah, 2024.
Yeah, not for us, but yeah, definitely makes you think in other ways. Yeah, so for those who don't know, we hosted in 2024 internationals, and Loveland got its first internationals victory that year. In addition to just playing triple the capacity it's ever had before. I would actually say not only did it come up, Odin, but like we pretty much based everything on the fact that we had home field advantage. We wanted to milk it more than any site has ever milked it.
Yeah, absolutely. So, like, in what ways did you plan or strategize around home field advantage in order to weaponize it? Really,
that's a huge question. Okay, let me count the ways. Okay. Well, I've said this before, but I'm going to say this psychology fact again. The biggest predictor of a person's success isn't necessarily their talent, their demographic, their capacity, whatever it is. It is, have they done it before? How much practice has a person had in doing this or that? If you've worked a job for a year, even if you're a pretty average type of employee, you're probably pretty good at the job by that point compared to someone on their first day who might have unlimited potential, you know? So the idea was just, we want reps in every situation with the lineups that we're going to run during this tournament. And we went with a plan where we could implement something that only works for the home field, and that, well, not only works, but we wanted to build a strategy where we could play one lineup during the week or one version of it, and then when it came time for the big finals games, change our lineup in a way where even though we hadn't practiced it at internationals during the week, we would have practiced it a bunch leading up to the event. And no one else would have any practice at all against the new lineup we were throwing out. I don't recommend teams outside of a home site do this unless they are willing to take on the risk reward of the strategy, because you're still building up so much muscle memory throughout round play as an away site. I would think that you're likely to keep hitting your ceiling by keeping your rolls, but I would think a home field team that's continuously winning their games throughout the week is actually losing its potential and power as people begin to figure them out. So we wanted to basically start the process over for everyone of figuring us out in finals. So we practiced multiple lineups throughout the year. We practiced specific recovery scenarios. We wanted to be really good at recovery. We practiced defending the downstairs for extended periods of time. We practiced recovering the upstairs. We practiced multiple lineups, and yeah, I have to say it worked. It worked really well.
Yeah, that's great. And it was definitely successful. You know, I mean, the results speak for themselves. So a win is good.
The results do speak for themselves, because any other tournament, like I said, triple effectiveness, like Loveland, on one hand, like I don't want to diminish any of our accomplishment, but at the same time, like put us in an away site, and like we've never played anywhere near that before, ever. It says how much home field advantage really can help.
Yeah. And definitely, I think there's plenty of other factors that went into that. You know, mindset. I think you guys had a completely different mindset going into Nats last year.
Sure, absolutely.
Than before, but definitely, home field advantage had its role, as it does every year. You know. So, back to planning. Did you have any plans to address the weaknesses that come with playing at your home field, like we talked about before, like, you know, that unpreparedness or dealing with away teams having unexpected strategies or tactics?
Sorry, I'm just trying to think, because we did have a sit down where we broke down every team and we took our best guess as to if they were going to try to win a game against us, here's the best chance they have to do it. Here's where they need to put their resources. Here are the players that they're banking on. And honestly, far more of our strategy was to prevent other people from succeeding than reaching our own highest potential. We were really in like lockdown, high defense, play at our floor, not our ceiling mode. We were trying to not fail more than we were trying to succeed. I know that's not the best win. Usually it's not the best winning attitude. I would say if I am traveling to another site and I'm an underdog, then I am building a team that's shooting for our ceiling, playing to our strengths. But really, like, we wanted to shut people down. We wanted to shut specific players down. We wanted to just we knew if we could draw every game out into kind of like a slow, boring crawl, we were going to come out ahead in pretty much every situation.
Yeah, that's one of the perks of being the favorites, right? Is, you're already there, so you can do a bit of goaltending, just kind of keep kicking everyone down from the from the ladder.
We in Brisbane this last year, I mean, we're talking about Rusty and Taipan in their home field, right? The attitude people had about being able to even try to beat them, a lot of teams weren't even trying, even good teams. It was just like, well, we're going to lose. And I'm like, okay, yeah, you're very likely going to lose, but it's not impossible to beat them. They're just, they're mortals, I'm pretty sure. But the way you would beat them is not to play a boring, drawn-out game, because they are absolutely going to win in the familiar territory. Make it unfamiliar. Throw them out of things that they have practiced over and over again. Sure, maybe they've been in the situation you're throwing at them 5 times in their life, and you've never been in it before. But allow for some high variance, something weird, and you remove a lot of the home field advantage in that scenario.
That's definitely mixing things up has been a staple of mine.
Yeah,
traveling to other states, so I can definitely vouch for its effectiveness. It doesn't always work, but when you're not consistently winning, you can't. You obviously don't have something that always works. So
no, would you rather
that can work?
Would you rather a 0% chance of winning or a 1%? I don't know.
Yeah, absolutely. No, that's a great point, bringing Brisbane in. And that's something too where, and also kind of another reason why I want to talk to you is that Brisbane put on a great defensive performance, but I don't know that any away teams were really challenging them. Versus, sorry, I feel like last year there was a lot of teams coming for the Loveland team, trying to take first that tournament still.
Yeah, absolutely. And so there were only 2 teams that took a game off of us, and I think they did it in different ways. So the California team, they kept very stable all week. They came in with a roster of players where, in my personal opinion, sorry, Loveland, I've gotten so much crap for ever doubting anybody at my site, but I feel like in a neutral arena, the California team would have beaten our team most of the time. I'll just say that. Maybe 2 out of 3 times or 3 out of 4 times, I would bet. Because they're objectively that talented, and I think even potentially that much more talented than our roster was. But we had home field advantage. We got a big boost. Every game they played in our arena, they got better and better and better and better, because that's what happens. They're getting reps, the very thing that we got to have a ton of all year. You give them a week of reps, now they are hitting a peak, while we made all it took was some really big misplays, and they killed Sergeant Tucker out, our medic, in 5 minutes, and you see still our team was good enough to draw out that game and into a closer loss. But California beat us by basically just becoming better and then playing a stable game where they got the better end. Meanwhile, Cedar City, they actually got their win mainly by throwing an opening curveball at us. That was the first game that they flipped Commander onto top floor, Heavy onto second floor, and you can watch the game. I beat the snot out of Caleb for a minute, but it doesn't matter because Snuffles is able to do so much damage. Caleb waits me out. I'm low on stuff. They take over the game, And it was close, but they do it. They put us in very unfamiliar territory, and we absolutely tilted and made some bad decisions in game. Like, it all went right. And both those teams, the only way they could do that was by, I mean, it all started with not believing that it was impossible.
Yeah, I mean, you have to believe in the possibility to pull it off, right? If you're already playing with defeat in mind, it doesn't work.
You shoved my team downstairs one time. Remember that?
Yeah.
You were playing for what many would call the California B team, and you had us on the back foot. One good play.
That's something that I value a lot in players, is the ability not to go toe to toe with the strongest players, but the ability to at least try to challenge them. I think there's a lot of players who do really well, but they kind of just sit at their ceiling and shoot down. They aren't the type of players who go and say, I'm going to beat Rusty, I'm going to pull something off and beat this player that's consistently beat me every time. And so I really value players who are willing to take on those, Goliath moments, really like try and shoot up and see what they can pull off. And, I think that when you play like that, you can get a lot more done, especially, when you're trying to place higher, see how high you can go. We've been talking a bit about your team specifically and Nats last year and kind of defending your place at your home site. But let's talk a little bit about your B team. Was there any advice that you gave to your B team to encourage them to utilize home field advantage to perform better? Or, was it kind of a similar thing with them where you wanted them to kind of play at their base level, but shut other players down?
Well, that team was incredibly talented. They had the tools to be anything they wanted to be. And they mostly figured things out on their own. We had advice for them from time to time, but I didn't give them any notes. They would have in-depth team meetings. They would try. They would show up. Like 90% of what we did for them was beat the snot out of them every week and also tell them to keep going. Because we got reps against a B team that we beat most of the time. Our B team got reps against the Loveland A team every week. So they were constantly playing against people who were way up here. Sorry, I shouldn't do that on camera. Who were way up here. When I saw myself in the reflection, I'm like, oh gosh. And so I've seen this before, like with B teams. Like, I didn't need to give them any specific advice. If they are learning to play against our team, then, I mean, you saw what they could do against people that weren't us. Like, they were prepared for a Loveland A type of onslaught, and then they could handle pretty incredible players.
Yeah, they did very well. So even without the advice, is there any like specific circumstances that you could think of or that you noticed where they were really able to utilize home field advantage in order to maybe turn around a losing situation or maybe get a leg up in certain games in like the openings?
I think it was probably mostly in their recovery, that they were really good at recovery. Loveland Day would push them down all the time. So the amount of reps they had doing that as a team of 6, they probably got to do that recovery, I don't know, maybe 30-ish times over the year. And because they did that, when a team pushed them down, they were one of the best teams at coming back up in a successful way. If anyone wants to learn how to recover, don't watch our team, because we hardly got pushed down. And frankly, it was one of our big weaknesses. We were not that good at recovering. Loveland B was the better team at recovering.
Yeah, they did that very well. It was very noticeable. Do you have anything else that you want to say or throw in on preparing for a Nats as a home team?
Don't feel guilty for using it. It's kind of I mean, at the end of the day, you're not going to gain any more or less honor by or pride by not practicing. You're still going to have been the home field team, so use the advantage. Especially because I love it. I love it and I don't like it. I'm looking forward to the day when we just like build a new arena every Nats and every team has to play in it for the first time. That'd be cool. But for now, it actually is a really unique chance to see basically the ceiling of every site. What do you do when you get the year to prepare, when you have your whole player pool to choose from? Like, show us exactly what you're made of. And there's a lot you can do when you take advantage of the time. You can build multiple lineups. You can even take a player who has the potential to be something and train them for 6 months on the role. You don't think they're going to get better than where they are day one after 6 months? Someone like your younger talent who's like really talented but doesn't have the experience? Absolutely. Like you can get people there. I don't recommend C teams from experience. Generally, it depends on the level of your site. Well, no, Brisbane C was great. Our C team in 2018 had a really bad time and they all quit. So I don't know. Just don't be desperate for one.
Yeah. Yeah, that's great stuff. I love these talks because it's like we just get to talk about laser tag.
Oh yeah.
And it always feels productive because it's like even if we were to sit here and just say something super obvious back and forth, like, oh yes, you should shoot more people than people shoot you.
Oh yes, I agree.
Like, saying out loud like gives more power to it. It's like, oh yes, it's now rooted deeper in my cortex, you know.
Mm-hmm. We do need reminders of things.
Yeah. So, moving on to my last section, probably the smallest bit. I want to talk about results.
Okay.
And so I want to talk with you about how you think home field advantage affected team outcomes in Nats last year, not just relative to your team in Loveland B, but also teams that had players with large amounts of Loveland experience, like the Detroit team and the Cedar City Sentinels with Slaughtermelon. I know that the Detroit team still, didn't place, I mean, they placed at the floor, but, how did maybe some of that home field advantage with Phantom affect the way that they were able to play throughout the week?
Okay. I'll start with Cedar City because Cedar City has someone who grew up in Loveland, Slaughtermelon, and you can tell it was like when Slaughtermelon went over there, you can tell they began to share ideas and innovate together, and some home field advantage kind of rubbed off on the Cedar City team. Snuffles said that he always found Loveland pretty easy to pick up right from the beginning. So some of it is also just their awesome talent. But you can tell Caleb leading that team, having that experience in Loveland and the deep understanding of how it works, he was able to spread that to the whole team and really make a lot of use of it. Even with what I would consider some players who weren't at the level of California, they were able to beat California in finals. And it just shows you like there's so many factors that determine how a team will do. Home field advantage is one of them.
Yeah.
Gosh, I guess you are right that probably Detroit had the next level, the next highest amount of home field games. I'm trying to think through, but so it was honestly kind of a Loveland C team, just in that half the team was Loveland.
Right, Phantom, Blackout, and Lizzie Lizard, right?
Absolutely. So I think what I saw was an immediate kind of comfort from those players. They kind of knew where to go and what to do. Rhea and Disco Stu had been in the arena before, for sure. Rhea in 22 played in the West Coast. I don't think Stu was there at that time. I'm not sure when Stu was actually out here beforehand. But anyway, they brought significantly more experience with them compared to the Loveland players. So you had kind of like a bit of a lopsided, different kinds of experience there. And Little Bit had not been to the arena, period, I don't think. So it was quite a mix. And I think the big complaint, or the big reason why that team fell apart, was really just having too many barriers to overcome in too short of a time. Like, you saw them getting better. It wasn't just a stomping every game, but to actually get over the hump and win. They also had some unlucky breaks, and they were figuring out their lineup all week. They didn't quite get it together. So the big theme from today is like home field advantage equals reps, is kind of what I'm saying. And that team, every rep they got was so varied and different and difficult to like even learn from, sometimes getting shoved downstairs in 30 seconds and then running around trying to survive. The reps weren't that good. The reps weren't reps where you could learn, how do I play the second floor? Oh, my team's downstairs already. You know?
Yeah.
Like, it sucks for them. They probably could have used a good solid day for funsies games without even having to play together, just so that everyone kind of understood the arena better. But yeah, that's one of those where home field advantage boosted some of the players up, but wasn't enough to really get them where they needed.
Yeah. For the Loveland B team, for most of those players, it was, for most / all of those players, it was at least their first Nats showing, if not their first tournament showing.
Mm-hmm.
And, you know, they got a lot of spotlight. They got a lot of recognition for what they were able to put up. How do you think their first showing changes if they have to travel to an away Nats? And this isn't meant to dunk on them or anything, you know, but it's, you know, a genuine thing. You know, some people, their first Nats is at home, and some people, they have to travel to show up and play. But how do you think it changes for them?
I think they would have placed a lot lower because they're talented. And if we have the time, like, this is something I would absolutely ask back at you, Odin, as somebody who pretty much all your experience is in away arenas. Home field advantage gave them a ton of reps, but I would be willing to bet anybody's first away tournament, they're going to see a huge drop off from their normal ability to play. And at the same time, people who have gone to tons of arenas tend to see less difference in how they play arena to arena, because their context for the game stops being dependent on the place that they're playing in. That's my proposal. What do you think of that?
Yeah, I agree with the concept for sure. I think that definitely, you know, there's a culture shock that happens when you go to another site. You know, you play in your site with your players and you get used to the vibe there. You get used to the general openings and the general flow of the game. And then you go to another site and it's a different game. And eventually, as you get more experience, it all kind of converges into one thing. You're like, okay, this is Space Marines 5. Mm-hmm. But it's like, you know, it's like, okay, this big circle is Space Marines 5. And you're playing your members nights and you're practicing at your home site. You maybe do a home Nats, and your window of experience is this little circle here in the bottom. And then you go to another site, it's a little circle over here, a little circle over here. Oh. And, you know, it's like, it's a different game, but the compilation of all of them together is what actually makes Space Marines 5. And I think that's a big reason why traveling, I feel, is so important for raising players' quality of play, is that you need to get the bigger picture. I think there's, you know, a lot of limited context when you only play in one site, or even two sites, or three. You know, you start to think, oh, this is the heavy's job, is to do this thing, because I played two sites, and in both sites the heavy plays like this. Well, then maybe you go to another arena and the way that it plays is just so safe for the resupply that the heavy doesn't even need to be anywhere near there. The resupply, oh yeah, the whole resupply spot is just this one 15-foot hallway that they can backtrack over and over again and keep themselves safe, and nobody can do anything about it, so the heavy can just go do whatever. Like, there's a lot of weird, absurd arena designs out there that completely change the context of the game, and being able to see more of it is very helpful. And I think that's one way that kind of affects, player debut. Going back to the question, is, I think at the end of the day, talent shows through, but I think that when you're playing your first away tournament, your showing is a lot more awkward. It's a lot more of that raw skill rather than, the complex maneuvers and mobility and things that you're able to pull off in your home site. Because, you're trying to probably force your original style of play in a new arena. Even if you're trying to mix things up, a lot of times it still comes from the context of your home site until you get more experience. Like maybe, when we want to cheese things at our home site, we rush across first floor. So we're going to try that in this other arena. And, and that's, your view of mixing it up, because that's kind of what your perspective on the game is.
How much do you think it matters? How much does it affect your ability to play at home if you play at an away site? Does that question make sense?
Yeah.
How much does it actually benefit you at home?
I think that there is a significant impact, but I do believe that there is a lot of room for quality, like significant members night skill gain just playing at home site. I've seen plenty of times players that just do members nights over and over. They're able to play all the way up here in members nights. But when LTC still existed, whenever I traveled and played Nats and came back, I always played worse because I had these things that I was trying to internalize and take in and learn and develop into skills. And it's hard to do while you're trying to win. So I'm like, all right, well, trying to win isn't my goal right now. I'm trying to improve. And so I'd play worse for a bit, but then I would shoot up like a whole tier, if not more sometimes. And so there's definitely like significant improvement there. But I think where the real impact comes at home is in the very high level coordinated play. When you're playing against teams like Brisbane, or you're playing against like super teams, or like some very high tier teams, and you need more context and knowledge about the game, that's where going and playing against them in their home field maybe gives you a little more information about them and the way that they'll play. And going and playing in several different arenas gives you more context to different approaches to the game and how you're supposed to respond to them. Because I couldn't even imagine like not being able to regularly practice at a site and having no context for the totem pole strategy, and then playing a home site Nats and a team totem poles against me, and I'm like, I've never seen that before. What am I supposed to do now? I guess I'll go shoot them. And so I definitely think that there's benefit, but the more coordinated and the higher level the overall play is, the more you'll see the impact compared to random members night games.
Yeah, I would have to agree with that. Well, I'm not responding in interest of time. What else you got?
Yeah, so, again, in interest of time, I kind of wanted to go over a game with you, but maybe we could do that another time.
Sure.
And, kind of look at it from the context of home field advantage. So that would be great. Other than that, I have one last question for you, which is, what were examples of players, and I'm not asking you for the best players from Nats last year or the players who necessarily played the best, but players who played or adapted specifically against home field advantage the best?
Ooh, interesting. Who countered the home field advantage the best? I mean, I have to look at the top, at least compared to Fighting Loveland Phoenix. I have to look at those top two teams. Because it almost seemed like the way to beat home field advantage was with home field advantage type strategies. You know, that people would kind of imitate or copy us. The meta wasn't broken too badly. I guess I'd have to give it to Cedar City for being I would say the only team to invent something that successfully countered the meta that Loveland Phoenix played with the heavy swap. Now, when it came time for finals, from my understanding, I think Slaughtermelon had ideas on ideas. Like, I think he absolutely had counters to our counters that he was thinking about pulling out or wanted to. And you'd have to ask him about that. But we pulled a counter to his counter, and that worked. I think he definitely knew the arena well enough and was smart enough to pull out like a third, fourth, fifth option that we weren't expecting. But at the end of the day, like, those are just openings. And when it came to like the mid game, a lot of times things would fall back into the meta anyways. There weren't tons of ways to counter it when there's no time for planning. You know what I mean?
Right. Yeah.
Yeah.
Awesome. That was a great conversation. I'm glad we were able to have it.
Yeah, me too.
And hopefully we're, shedding some light on home field advantage rather than just it being this, mysterious aura that you gain from being in your home state.
Oh no, like there's a reason that people will give extra credit to winning at an away site. That's what helps make the US West so legendary from 2023, the team you were on, is that the battle between you and Brisbane, neither of you had the home field advantage. It was kind of like just an objective chessboard that your two teams were trying to figure out. How do I beat the team on this board? And I think that helps make it more of a true test of skill.
Yeah. Well, I think that the way that Nats is designed right now is, there's the big site focus. And I think the point specifically is, really heavy on defending your honor at your home site. Hey, we play here so much. I have 1,000 games here. You want to come challenge me in my house? Come at me,
Right.
And so I really think that those defensive wins are significant. I think Detroit in 2019, there's been, a lot, they've gotten some flack of, asterisk title, whatever, Brisbane team or whatever. But at the end of the day, what they did is they defended their honor in their home site. And that's what that was all about. They weren't traveling out to beat Brisbane. Like our goal in 2023 was, we are going to travel halfway across the world and fight Brisbane. We're going to go out there and shoot them. No. But that wasn't what it's about when you're a home site team. You're there and you are defending the throne, and that's what you pulled off on Loveland A. And it's just, I think it's just a different it's just a different goal and a different type of victory. But
yeah, absolutely. Hey, I had a hard cutoff for Odin right about now. I'm gonna go just a couple minutes over. I'm gonna tell them I'm gonna be a couple minutes late. Okay, I have a question for you.
Yeah.
What are your thoughts on the BDRL? I think they're one of the most interesting conversations about home field advantage, and I think you also have to contextualize not home field advantage. I think is also contextualized by site power, which is a concept I'm kind of making up right now. How basically the site as a whole, how powerful are your players and how deep is your knowledge base that your top players could share and like transfer to players that never have played at an away tournament before.
Yeah. I think there's two main points here. The first is that they are playing under Rusty, Tragedy, Glader, all these super, super experienced players who have traveled to tournaments and played all over the place, and they've played against everybody. They pretty much have, the whole scene on lock. They got everyone in their sights, and they have so much knowledge and information to where even if they're not necessarily like mentoring them or giving them specific advice, they're still able to get a wide variety of experience in different approaches to the game, different ways to play the game. They're still kind of getting a glimpse into the big circle, and I think that that's very important. I think a good example of that is like Sacramento versus Old Loveland. When I was playing in Sacramento, I had DK to watch and see, and DK had traveled all over and played these different arenas and had all these moves and maneuvers and thoughts and approaches to the game that I could experience. Versus Old Loveland, there's a very minimal amount of experience that was there for and you guys really had to, from what I understand, not to speak for you, but had to pull on away talent and get some input from players from other sites. And it's kind of different, getting a little bit of input here and there versus constantly playing against a team that just has all of the experience in the Laserforce scene. And so I think that's like the first main point, and like one of the main things that was significant for them. And the other thing is you could see that they had a very clear knowledge and understanding of how to respond to the game in their field. When you watch those games, they are so intentional with every movement that they make. They know exactly where they're going to go, and they know what their job is to do there and when they need to leave and come back and do whatever. You can see their resupply flush. They always had where they were going and then an end objective. Oh, we're going to go here for a little bit and then come back to the tower and set back up there. And even when things got changed on them, even when the script got flipped or they changed their strategy, they still knew how to approach it. A lot of times watching them move around, it almost looks like they're on autopilot. They just kind of have a way that they move through the field. They have a way that they approach certain situations. Oh, their heavy is over in this spot. Well, I just go this way. That's the way that I play. And so I think, that really leans on the knowledge and experience. And it looks like they probably practiced a couple or a few different lineups, maybe positionings. They definitely looked like they were never really out of their comfort zone. Even if there were maybe some strategies or tactics or players that they were struggling with, they kind of had an answer to it already going into the tournament. And that's a huge advantage versus, having to go and adapt to an away field. And then all of a sudden, all these curveballs are coming at you. So, yeah, I really think it was like those two main points that really came to fruition with them, despite their inexperience in the net scene overall.
Yeah, absolutely. Thank you for your thoughts on that. They've definitely gotten me going back to the drawing board to just not rethink everything, but add extra context for why that happened. Because that doesn't happen with every B team. Loveland B took fourth. And I've seen other B teams go far lower. I've seen B teams take last place. So it's like there's a reason that B team beat all the top talent that the U.S. was able to send out this year. I'll contextualize it like that. Regardless of the idea that maybe this, in DK's opinion, was kind of a soft or weak showing from the U.S., I like what we're missing like some of the top players from a few sites, and we sent out all the rest of the top players. Like, it was still a really good showing. I mean, those were top players from our country, and no one could even beat them a single time, apart from like penalties they got on themselves.
Yeah, I think another thing, and this is maybe a little off the home field advantage topic, but looking at them, something that I saw different than other B teams is they all seemed happy to play with each other. And this is meant maybe as a little bit of a shot at people, but a lot of times, B teams are kind of cobbled together, and they, there's some personality conflicts. Maybe they had a couple bad members nights in a row where a couple of them are really frustrated with each other, and now they just have to play together. And so I think, that's another struggle that a lot of B teams face, but they all seemed, genuinely pleased to go in, and then they could just focus on the laser tag. It doesn't have to be, I'm mad at this player for not pulling his weight. It's just, all right, what do we do better next time? I think that's very important.
Yeah, absolutely. I have to get going.
Yep.
Sorry to wrap this up here, but thank you so much for coming on with these questions. It was really cool to talk about. And let's get back on here soon sometime when you can.
Yeah, that's great.
All right. Thank you, Odin. Check out. You don't have anything, but you're making stuff.
I'm making it.
Odin. If you need coaching, Odin will tell you how laser tag works. They are great.
I play laser tag sometimes. I'm Odin. Check it out.
All right. See you, everyone.
Thank you for listening to Force Pro Sports. Subscribe to the channel and get cool perks by supporting our Patreon. Play Laserforce and become part of this era's next great sport.